2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 3 through 7. Let's start there in verse 3. Paul is writing to Timothy, and he says, I thank God. It's good, always good to start with I thank God, whom I serve with a pure conscience, as my forefathers did. As without ceasing, I remember you in my prayers night and day, greatly desiring to see you, being mindful of your tears. What does that mean? There's some concerns there. There's concerns for Timothy. There's some worry. There's some fear. That I may be filled with joy when I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded is in you also. Now, how many of you know that there's been an investment made in your life for you to be in the position of where you are today? Can we agree with that? How many of you have had a praying grandma? A mom, a dad. You've had somebody praying for you. Can I tell you that the two kids that walked into a small church in Northeast Louisiana had people praying for us that we didn't even know? Praying for God to have His way, for God to transform our life, in spite of the people that grabbed us and drug us down to the front. Can I tell you, sometimes people can mess stuff up, but I can tell you this. There were seeds that were sown. There were people that made investments that loved us more than we understood in that season. Paul is telling Timothy, there is a genuine faith that lives in you that first lived in Lois, in your grandmother Lois, and in your mom Eunice. Now, there's an investment. There's been an investment made in you. There's been an investment made in me. He says, therefore, in verse 6, therefore I remind you to stir up the gift of God which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Now, we will quote that in a lot of ways, but Paul is saying this on the heels of him encouraging Timothy, hey, stop looking at this through the lens of your worry and your fear. Why would Timothy do this? Because God has anointed him and positioned him in an opportunity to be a premier leader in his day and his time. But what's happening? Timothy is a young man, very young. Can I tell you this? It's important for you to understand that age does not equivocate maturity, right? Look, I've known some young men and young women that are very mature in their faith. And I've known some older, seasoned men and women that are very mature in their faith. But I've also met some older, seasoned, mature people that weren't very mature in their faith. And I've also met some youngers that wasn't. So age is not the equivocation of maturity in their faith. Now, granted, I'm not saying that a 6-year-old is going to have the same maturity in the season of life experiences and the testimonies of the goodness and the greatness of God. But I think we can understand this, that you don't have to be 60 years old to get a great move of God happening in your life, because God is wanting to move in you now. He's wanting to move in this season of where you're at, and He's wanting to do great things in your life. So what could hold back the great things that God's desiring to do? Is it anyone else? Is it a mom or something a dad did to you? Is it something that someone else accused you of? Is it even the thought? Look, the things that hold us back are the thoughts that we have about ourselves. It's the way that we see things. It's this lens of perspective. And Paul is speaking to Timothy saying, look, man, he said it in another spot. He said, don't let them despise you because of your youth. Don't let them look down on you because you are young. Can I tell you, we're always going to have excuses of why we can't do what God's called us to do. Oh, they're not going to believe me. They're not going to think I'm good enough. They're going to think I'm great enough. But he says to him, hey, stir up the gift of God that is in you. Stir up the investment that is made in your life. Stir up the investment that started a long time before you because of the work that I did in your family. Start with that, and then it's been invested in you. Now stir that gift up because you are a gifted individual. You think, man, am I gifted? Absolutely. You can look at the person next to you and you can think, oh, maybe I'm not as good as them, or maybe you look at the person next to you like, I'm definitely better than. No. We don't live in the comparison trap. God has gifted and anointed you. You are powerful. You are incredible. You are the apple of God's eye. You are not a failure. You are a victorious overcomer. You're more than a conqueror. God has great plans for you. He don't just have great plans for everybody else. God's got a great plan for you. Don't you know it's easier to believe the greatness of God for somebody else than it is to receive the truth for yourself sometimes? When somebody else says they're sick and they need healing, you believe healing for them. But what about do you believe it for yourself? What about the moments where things are trying you? Oh man, God's going to bring you through it. But do you believe God to bring you through it? God wants you to embrace the season where you are, and He wants you to stir up the gift of God that is in you, the good things, the good investments, the great things that He has done, like His grace, His mercy, His redemption, the thing that He has done, and He's taken your past and thrown it in the deepest sea to never be remembered. He wants you to stir up the gift of God that is in you. That's what Paul is saying to Timothy. He said, man, stop coming up. Don't come up with excuses. There's an investment made, and you are powerful because there are more people that believe in you than you believe in yourself. Why is it that when we start to try to receive encouragement or when someone tries to encourage us, it's kind of weird. It's kind of like, oh, I don't want to. Sometimes we'll live in this discouragement, this fear, this worry. And he says to him, he says, for God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. So, man, don't be controlled by this worry. So how do you stir up? What is it? So my word to you today is the same of what Paul said to Timothy all these years ago. Stir up the gift of God that is in you. When God puts His hand on you, He put a deposit of His life within you, the ability to do the supernatural. There's greatness in you because of the person of Jesus Christ. So we ought to ask the question, how do we stir up the gift of God? Well, it starts by saying, you're like, well, why do we have to say it? Because you have to start. You have to speak into existence. You have to open up your mouth and speak something powerful against all the stupid that's been spoken over your life. Like, well, I just don't like to say anything. Well, you better learn how to say something. You got to learn how to speak. You got to learn how to speak the right way. Now, some of you say, well, I got no problem speaking. I run my mouth all the time. No, you got to learn how to shut up and be quiet sometimes and let the Lord say what needs to be said instead of you just voicing your opinion all the time, because your opinion may not be godly. That's for somebody watching, maybe not in here. It's obviously you're all great. How does it start? It starts by saying, in this prayer mentality, saying, Lord, I want it. I want my life to be what you've called it to be. I don't want to simply blend in with this society and ultimately make no difference. I want the power to stand out as a follower of Jesus Christ. So our prayer becomes like this: Lord, stir me. Take me to another level. Take me to another place. Don't let me become stale and stagnant. Don't let me live on yesterday's grace and yesterday's victory, because today is a new day. There are new people I'm going to encounter. Stir the compassion in my heart. Give me the eyes to see people the way that you see them. Don't let me be afraid of the people's opinions or their faces. Lord, you are alive inside of me, and you gave me the power of your Spirit, and you left me on this earth for a purpose and a reason. So help me lay hold of the reason that I am alive in this moment and in this generation. You start to pray that way, you start thinking, yes, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. He's saying, Timothy, you're going to be a great leader, not because you're great, but because the gift of God in you is great. God's got a great work for you, and we want to do all of these things and measure greatness by things that are subjective. But God gives very clear. He says, look, you don't ever have to worry if you're great, because you're great because I made a deposit and an investment in your life. I gave the very best gift possible that I could give to the face of this earth in my Son, Jesus Christ. And when you receive Him, I made an investment that you don't have to worry about your value ever again. You don't have to worry if you're good enough, if you're talented enough, if you're creative enough. The Spirit is the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead, lives inside of you as a child of God. You are enough. You are more than enough. You're not just surviving, you're more than a conqueror. What is more than a conqueror? It's the person who receives the benefit of a price they did not pay. Think about it. There was a war that was fought for your soul that happened on the cross, and He paid a debt you couldn't afford. Guess what happened? You got to receive a gift called mercy and grace. Forgiveness. Your sin. My sin. I'm more than a conqueror because He took the beating and I received the benefit. So why would fear drive us? And so today I want to talk about reclaiming this table, reclaiming the moments, reclaiming the family, reclaiming our marriages, reclaiming our life, reclaiming our lens of perspective to see as God sees and have the moments that God's going to do great things in our lives. Do you believe it? Now, I'll take some of it. Some of you will be convinced by the end. The only thing that can stop a child of God is unbelief. That's it. There's nothing that can stop you but your unbelief. That's why he said to Timothy, stir up the gift. Dude, don't come up with excuses. Stir up the gift. There's been investments made in generations before you. Stir up the gift. Stir up the greatness of God in you. Stir it up. Like, well, I'm too old to stir. No, you stir it up. I'm too young. Nobody says stir it up. I can remember whenever April and I came to Christ, and I was going to every church service I could find. I was going to the church down the road for revival services. And look, sometimes I thought preachers were trying to get in the competition so they could hear God's voice lean over and say, I ain't never heard that before. I think sometimes he probably said, no, I don't think I've ever heard that before. I went to this meeting at this college campus, and I went with a friend from the church. He was younger than me. He wasn't married. I was 19 when I got married. April and I, she was 18. And, through years of chasing and prayer, I gave in, and we were just about to celebrate 20 years in a couple of days. And I go to this meeting, and the leaders that are normally there, I knew them, and I thought, I'm going to go check it out. My friends, I mean, it's going to be powerful, it's going to be good. And I go there, and my first alarm when I walk in was the guy that was leading the service. I'd watched, and some of you may remember this documentary. It was on Waco and David Koresh. The dude that was leading the service looked like that actor, David Koresh. And I was like, uh-oh, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't do it. Do not do it. No. And so we're going, and you gotta say, I didn't grow up in church, so when things get freaky, I don't know what's happening. I'm just back there, we're singing this song, and all of a sudden he stops worshiping, he says, I see a coal. And I'm like, no, I don't see no coal. I didn't get it. It's gonna touch your lips. I'm like, oh no. That's gonna like mark up, get all chapped, burned up, and it takes a long time. I didn't quite understand that it's cold touching. He was talking about what the prophet Isaiah said in the book of Isaiah. I hadn't read that part of the Bible yet. I was just still in the Gospels. And so I'm kind of going, and so he opens up this altar time, and I'm like, hey, altar time, I'm in. I just go, I want to receive everything God has for me. That's just kind of the position I'm in. And he comes up and he, gets my name. He says, hey, what's your name? So my name's Johnny, because that's my name. So I told him, and he called me Johnny because that is my name. And he says, Johnny, how old? I said, 19. I just got married. And he's like, yeah, I've had a lot of friends get married young. They didn't make it. I was like, okay. I mean, because I came to church to be encouraged. I guess he didn't read the same memo. I guess he wasn't encouraging me to stir up the gift. He was trying to stir up some dysfunction, I guess, because I was supposed to go home and tell April, hey, the preacher was at the thing tonight said we probably wasn't going to make it because all his friends that got married young, they didn't make it either because they just got led by their emotions and not by their friends. So they just not, because, it's just easy to kind of fall in and out of love. And so, y'all ain't going to make it because he said so. David Koresh said so it's not going to happen. And So I got a little backwards. So I tell him I just got married, and he's like, and then he says, well, how old are you? And I said, 19. And he's like, man, church ain't going to take you serious until you're about 30. It's like, oh. So I got 11 years of wasting my time and their time. And I'm thinking, well, lo and behold, you know how old he was? 30. Look, this dude needed to read the Pauline epistles and kind of get a clue a little bit. Now, I don't know where he's at today, and I hope he's doing well, and I hope he's not dumb enough to do that stuff again. Because if it wasn't for the grace and the mercy of God, I'd have listened to stupid. And we got enough stupid in our lives trying to project the different outcomes than what the Lord desires, right? And sometimes you go into Christian circles hoping to receive the right news, and I can tell you this, just because it claims to be a Christian meeting doesn't mean they're going to have the Christian values preached and practiced. I can tell you this, that he had said enough to mess me up for a long time, but I I wasn't going to let it. Why? Because it's my job to stir up the gift. I knew God had been too good to this stupid redneck from nowhere to let some David Koresh lookalike tell me that I wasn't going to be able to stay married or be taken serious till I was 30. Didn't make no sense. And I leave there going, this dude mad because he's 30 is single. That's what it is. That's all that is. And he drove a Yugo. I'm thinking, do you understand that that day could have been the unbelief that we were going to make, the unbelief that that I could just spend the next. And it was in moments where I go, I got to stir up. Look, there are times that you can't rely on other people to stir up the gift in you. You got to stir up your own gift. You got to stir up the gift. God's been way too good to us to put our destiny in the hands of another individual, because we can trust our tomorrow because we know who holds it, right? Stir up the gift of God in you. Remember, the only thing that stops us as a child of God is unbelief. It's the way we think, our perspective, the lens in which we see things. Write this down. Our lives move in the direction of our strongest thoughts. That's truth. That's why Romans 8, verses 5 and 6 says, those who are dominated by the sinful nature think about sinful things. But those who are controlled by the Holy Spirit think about things that please the Spirit. So letting your sinful nature control your mind leads to death. But letting the Spirit control your mind leads to life and peace. What am I saying? Inner dialogue matters. You know, the conversation you have with yourselves on the inside. Don't look at me like I'm crazy. We all know what it's. I hope we all know what it's. I hope I'm not the only one that has two different people trying to talk at the same time about every decision in life. Am I the only? You ain't never had a negative? No? You never had a voice that speak? Okay, just y'all looking at me like, preacher's office rocker. He's crazy. He needs to get some medicine. I mean, what? Y'all just looking at me like, I've never had that happen. Nothing talks to me. Look, we all have this inner dialogue, right? And in your mind, you can be dominated by sinful, the negative, and the critical thinking. Or you can have a mind controlled by the Spirit of God, consistent with God, that's consistent with God-honoring truth. I'll give you two different sets to kind of understand that. You can have this first scenario, this first example, where you can have this thought of, you say, no matter what comes your way and something happens, you say, you know what? My God is with me. My life matters. I'm full of faith. I got a mind and a spirit that's at peace with God, and I got divine energy for this day, and I got an amazing moment to capture, and I'm excited about the future God has for me. Or you can have this other conversation in the same moment and say, I'm so tired, I just need coffee. Why did I have these kids so close together? I got too much to do. I need an extra day in the week. People make me crazy. Life's so overwhelming, I can't ever get ahead. Well, guess what? The direction of our thoughts determine the direction of our future. That's why he said to Timothy, stir up the gift of God in you. Do you think God brought you this far to watch you fail? No, not at all. That's why we got to stir up the gift. We've got to take control of the way that we think and say, you know what, I may be young and I may miss it from time to time, but if I'm going to miss it, I'm going to miss it running towards Jesus and being who he called me to be. Look, I'm past this season. I don't have it. Look, you got something to offer because there's a gift in you. Who you are matters. Your life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts. So I ask you this question. Are you excited about the direction your thoughts are taking you? Look, I can tell you there have been times that I have not been. Because sometimes the inner dialogue that's happening up in my mind is negative. I'm pessimistic by nature. I'm a very analytical person. If someone calls me and says, hey, Pastor John, I'd love to get together, most of the time I see worst case scenarios, so that if anything happens better than that, it's a win. That sounds weird, doesn't it? I know. Like if somebody comes and says, hey, Pastor Johnny, can we get together? I need to talk to you about something. We're like, yeah, that's it. They're leaving the church. I said something stupid. I get, or man, they don't like this, or they don't like a Christmas tree, or they don't like, it's kind of. And so, so what I have to do, I can either live in that kind of fear and worry. Look, fear and worry don't get you in. Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it gets you nowhere. Keeps you busy in your mind without accomplishing anything. So I think, man, I got too much to do. I can't get it all done. I can't keep the schedule up. Life's so overwhelming. So what has to happen when you stir it up is a change in thinking. That's why Romans 12:2 in the New Living Translation says, don't copy the behaviors and the custom of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Listen to me. Before you start decorating the family table and trying to reclaim, why don't you reclaim your thought life? The way that you think. Man, my kids are going to end up doing this because I got a family member that turned into that, and they act just like, no. Speak life over them. Reclaim it. Oh, if I don't do this, they're going to turn into... Look, they're people too. It's not your job to make them. It's your job to create an appetite. It's your job to create an appetite and a thirst for the things of God in their life. You can't make a kid love Jesus, but you can create an appetite. You can't knock Jesus into them or beat the devil out of them. Some of you are like, my kids in here, I wish you hadn't said that. Because I bluffed them for a long time, told them I'd take them out of this world, make another look just like them. Look, it's a change. It's when you stir up the gift that is in you, it's a change in the way that you think so that you can have love, power, and a sound mind. When somebody attacks you, man, love them. I love you, me. You know what? You ain't against me, just for yourself. I get it. You need somebody to be mad at, you'll move on quickly. Because unhappy people ain't just unhappy with you. They're going to be unhappy with whoever they're dealing with. It ain't an everybody else issue. It's a them issue. But if everybody in your life has the same central theme around you, then maybe it might be a you issue. You're just so rude. I'm just telling the truth the way it is. Well, maybe you're rude. Maybe you need to stir up the gift of encouragement in you. What did Jesus do? Did Jesus run around and say, like, y'all gonna die and go to hell? Every one of you. Pitiful, dirty, rotten, sorry, tax collecting, thief, whoremongering, adulterers. You're bald, nasty, dirty, sick. Y'all gonna burn, every one of you. I'm gonna go up here on the side of the mountain and pray about the disgusting filth that you're in. And if you can, I'm not gonna walk on water. No. He went to them in their brokenness. And it would have made it easy for him to make a point like, yeah, that's right, woman, you're at the well, and you're talking about all your traditions and all your little religion, but yeah, why don't you go tell your husband? Oh, yeah, that's right, you've been married already 5 times. And the one you live with ain't jumping either. Yep. That's a real good story. No, what did he say? He says, there's coming a time when I have a Father seeking those who worship in spirit and in truth. Your traditions and your upbringing, it ain't gonna dictate your tomorrow and this dysfunction you're in. You can be redeemed because what you've done is not who you are. If you belong to me, I will stir the gift up that is in you. He was about making a difference, not a point. It'd been real easy for him to point at everybody and be like, I'm the only perfect one. You're all failures. But he didn't. He was about bringing people to himself. He was about bringing and connecting them to the Father heart of God. He was about them. That is a change. Stirring up the gift. Stirring up the gift. My family's never going to. It's all right. Your job is not to make your job is to stir up the gift in you and watch what happens. So much of life isn't about what happens to you, but how you think about what happens to you. I got this happening. I can't believe this is, I'm just, oh, poor, pitiful me. Suck it up. Get over it. Life is hard. Life is tough. It is not fair. If you want fair, go to Robertsdale in October, pay the cover charge, and ride the Ferris wheel. That's the fair. That's not life. Is everybody in here, by a show of hands, if you could say, everything in my life has been fair, Pastor, everything. Exactly. Life isn't fair. We all had somebody hurt us, walk out of tragedy. We've all experienced tragedy. Life isn't fair, but that's okay because I ain't looking for fair. I'm looking for faithful. Stirring up the gift is it's not about what happens to me. It's what I think about what happens. If something bad happens to me, I'm thinking, Lord, you're going to use this for a great story. Somebody's going to come to you because instead of pouting and whining about this situation, I'm going to watch you bring me through it. Because if you trust me enough to let it happen, you trust me enough to bring me through it. Isn't that a little bit different way to think about it than going, man, I got friends that never had bad things happen to them. They live however they want. And I've been going to church. I even been giving. You mean I don't have all the money in the world? I ain't going to be able to buy the new X, whatever. That's hard, isn't it? That's the way we think. Lord, if you trust, I'm not going to let fear and worry dominate me. It's a change of thinking. It's a stir it up. Stir it up. Stir up the gift that is in you. You are a beautiful, awesome, authentic individual that God is designed to make a difference in this moment. I've been saying it for a while now to our leadership. It's not what you do, it's what you think about what you do. So we're just doing things. It's real easy to lose perspective, but when you think about what you do. That's why on the serve team, if someone's like, oh, I don't ever get the microphone like some people, stand up on the stage and get to be heard. All I do is park cars. I'll tell them where to park and they won't even listen. I'll tell them, go over there, and they say, I've been coming here longer than you've been alive. I was coming to this church before you was a twinkle in your daddy's eye. I park where I want. I told them where to park, and they's mean to me. He's like, that's what you think, and park where they want it. I mean, I don't even. If all you think you just parking car? No. People are intelligent enough, believe it or not, in Alabama to find a parking spot. You're there to love on people from the first moment they get here. It's not about what you do. It's what you think about what you do. A smile. Like, well, I just don't smile. I'm smiling on the inside. Well, if you got joy in your life, notify your face. You're like, smiling's hard. Just take 2 fingers, push back. It happens. Do it long enough, muscle memory will take over. You'll just start doing it. I'm just so happy God's in my life. So I got the joy of God in my life. You want it? Nope. I'm just a greeter. All I do is greet. I mean, nobody even thinks it's a big, because you don't do what you do to be a big deal. You do what you do to be faithful. It's not about what you do. It's what you think about what you do. I love park. I love greeting. Why? Because I love people. I didn't always love people. Why? Because I found out people were crazy. Let ministry be easy if it wasn't for people, but if it wasn't for people, there'd be no ministry. Hello? It's not what you do, it's what you think about. See, listen to me. Stress isn't about all you have to do, it's how you think about all you have to do. You ever notice that being stressed out about it doesn't make it happen any quicker? I got to get this done. I just can't. I got to get. I'm like, hey, calm down, breathe. It's going to happen. Ride the slide. It's the season. Stop freaking out. Freak out over it. I mean, if I was going to freak out, we went to 7 overtimes last night. I thought I was going to bring that game to church. The only game that mattered yesterday. I'm thinking, who cares? Good season. It's just football. Blah, blah, blah. Move on. I like Kansas Jayhawks anyway. I'm thinking, stressing about what I have to do. Stressing is how I think about all I have to do. See, what you think and believe matters. If you think unhealthy, ungodly, unproductive thoughts are keeping you from the life God has. Look, if life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts, then you got to take a 2 Corinthians 10 verses 3 and 4 moment. And you have to say, for though we live in the world, we not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of this world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. What are the lies that you tell yourself? That is a stronghold. Someone may have said to you that you wasn't enough or you wasn't valuable or you, look, that may have been what they said, but it's not what he said. I love what the next verse in the New Living Translation says. He says, we capture their rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ. What's a rebellious thought? The negative, critical, condemning, hateful, fearful, and worried condition. To capture it means we teach you to obey Christ. So what negative thoughts are dominating your thinking? What negative thoughts are dominating? That you're going to be lonely the rest, that you're not going to have, that nobody's going to love you, everybody's going to, that maybe you're never going to be able to get done what has to be done. It's just too much. Maybe you're thinking listen to me ladies, maybe you think you're not a good enough mom because you went to your kid's little party at school and you went and bought the cookies from clearance at Publix, and there's a mama that made it from scratch. They got their own little wheat field. They harvested and it's all from scratch, and they got little decorations on it, and everybody's like, oh, those are so cute. And you're like, here's my clearance Publix cookies. I'm a terrible mom. I got ice cream? Oh, okay, I'm not good. I'm terrible, Mom. My kids think I'm a failure. Kids eat cookies. Don't matter if they made from scratch. Don't matter if they was clearance cookies. It don't matter. They just like cookies. Stop messing your life up just because you're not trying to win the favor of other people by cooking something from scratch. But if you won't cook from scratch and bless the prayer, I'm down with it. I'm just saying. Take clearance cookies too. Listen to me. We worry about so much junk that don't matter. I'm not a good mom. Look, you can be a good mom because you're there and you're consistent. You love your babies. Look, well, I'm just a stepmom. No, those are real tears you cry and real prayers you pray. I'm just a bonus. No, you are who God's called you to be. You stir up the gift. You are valuable. Who you are is a big deal. Well, I've done this and I've done that. Look, I'm always going to battle. I'm never going to be consistent. I'm always going to be undisciplined. I'm never going to be able to get ahead financially. I'm always going to struggle with weight. I'm not good with people. I'm just an average student. I can't ever make the grades. I'm never going to be enough. Well, if you think that way, you won't be. What spiritual truth can demolish those strongholds? It's stuff like this. You can say, I have everything I need to do everything God has called me to do because the Christ in me is more than enough. You can say, worry is not my master. My faith is in God and God alone. I'm not going to be easily offended. I'm going to be full of unconditional, unstoppable, unquenchable love. You hate me, I'm going to love you next. Oh, you think I'm going to be long? Oh, I'm going to be long? No. My God will never leave me. My God will never forsake me. You think your day's not going to be good? Well, start the day. No matter how hard it is for you to get up out the bed, start it and confess out loud and say, God, I believe your word is true and that you've got great things for me. So I'm going to stir up the gift. I mean, if you're worried all the time, you can counter it like this. You can say, because of Christ, I'm not anxious about anything. I cast my cares on God because he cares for me. I have the peace of God dwelling in my heart and ruling my mind. Can I tell you, we got to reclaim this stuff. Why? Because the devil's been messing with us. And when the devil starts messing with us, we start to believe a lie. We've got to put the devil in his place. You're like, well, Pastor, why are you so passionate? Why are you being loud? Because I'm a passionate person. But if you're not a loud person, then talk the way you know to talk. But when I get mad at the devil, I don't go in there and be like, dear Mr. Devil, I don't want to upset you or offend you because I'm supposed to love everybody. No, I hate the devil. The only person I have a license to hate. I put the devil in his place and be like, hey, guess what, devil? You trying to get me. You're trying to get me. You tried to get me today, but guess what? I'm going to get to go to bed and I'm going to wake up tomorrow as long as God gives me breath in my lungs, and I'm going to put you in your place. And guess what? I win in the end because he wins. And guess what? I know your future, so I'm going to remind you of it. You lose, and you'll always lose, and you never have hope. And you're not going to pull me down to the pit of stupidity of where you are. Why? Because I got to stir up a gift that God invested in my life. Well, I don't know God's will. You just say, you know what? My life belongs to God and I'm going to seek him daily. He'll direct my steps. I know his voice and he leads me his perfect will. Be like, well, how do I hear his voice? Shut up and listen. I got no confidence. Confidence is something you can grow in when you understand who you are in him. Like, well, I just don't spend consistent time with God. Then you start looking at it different. Say, Lord, I love living in the indwelling presence of my good God in my life. You start confessing, Lord, praying for me is important as breath in my lungs. You start looking at it like that, I believe the Lord will speak to you, give you direction. Like, well, how do I start? You start somewhere. Start where you are. I can remember as a new Christian going to this thing called intercessory prayers for an hour. Man, it's hard to pray for an hour. I'm listening to Sister pray an hour. You know, I think her name was Irma. Sister Irma. Sister Irma was just, that woman prayed like for a real long time. I was done in 5 minutes and I stretched it out. I was like, Lord, bless this people in this church, and Lord, all the food I'm going to eat this week and the food I hadn't even thought about yet. And Lord, bless the neighbors' dogs, and I don't care about their cats. They're not even in the Bible. You know, it's kind of that, I'm done. It looks like, 5 minutes. So I stop, I'd shut up, and I'm like, amen, what they said. Yes, do what yes. Hey, God didn't need me to talk to him in King James English. He needed me to talk to him like I knew how to talk to him. I start where I'm at. It may sound silly in the beginning, but guess what? It's just like every relationship. It grows with the more you spend in time together. Renew your mind, change the way you think, a controlled spirit. Make a faith statement. Like my faith statement, mission statement in life is this: I want to be known as a man who loves God, my family, and his church. That's it. I don't have this stuff I want people. I don't care about platforms and places in the world I get to preach or camps or district things or conventions. I don't care about it. I just want to be known as a man who loves God, his family, and his church. That's it. And I have this other one that's a big deal to me, and I say it a lot. Whenever things get tough and things get hard, I just remind myself and go, it's supposed to be hard. If it were easy, everybody would do it. So stir up the gift. Stir it up. How do we start? We started by saying, you know what? Jesus is first in my life. I exist to serve and glorify him. You want a better marriage? Say, I'm going to love my wife, and I'm going to lay my life down to serve her. You want great children? Then make a declaration and say, my children will love God and serve him with their whole hearts. I'm not raising them to be good. I'm raising them to be world changers. Good is the enemy of great. You have a hard time loving people? Just say, Lord, today I'm going to love people and believe the best about others. You have a hard time seeing the things that are coming against you and you think it's too tough, then just start quoting and saying and proclaiming over your life, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Why? Because the Christ in me is stronger than the wrong desires in my flesh. So thinking, well, I'm not creative. Look, you start saying, I am creative. I'm innovative, driven, focused, and blessed beyond measure because the same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead dwells inside of me. Start saying, I wake up with purpose, direction, and meaning for every day. Pain is my friend. Not in the weird Jim way, though, like pain is gain. You know, yeah. It's not that. It's that I rejoice in suffering because Christ suffered for me. It's saying, you know what? I bring my best and then some because it's what I bring after I do my best that makes the difference. Amen? Why? Because the world will be different and better because we serve Jesus today. Stand with me if you're able. Four things I'm going to pray over you. This whole room, listen to me, this whole room is becoming an altar in this moment. What is an altar? An altar is more than benches. An altar is more than a location. This whole room is becoming an altar right where you're standing. And your opportunity to respond to Jesus this morning is right where you are. Four things that I want you to know to walk out of here that are power statements in your life that I want you to grasp. Number one, I am anointed to accomplish. Accomplish what? The assignment God has for you. You are anointed. What is anointing? Anointing is God doing in flesh what flesh could have never done on its own. God has anointed you. You are anointed. You are positioned. You are valuable. So stir up that gift and do the great things God's called you to do. Why? It doesn't matter who else believes in you because he believes in you. And if he believes in you, then he's going to anoint you to accomplish what he's called you to do. Why? Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. You are anointed. You are set apart. You have been brought out and brought in. You are anointed. Proclaim it. Receive it. Number two, The greater anointing doesn't come because you have a greater assignment. You seek the anointing, the assignment will take care of itself. Look, I got to get greater anointing. I got a greater job to do. No, get the greater anointing. The greater assignment will take care of itself. Number 3, I want you to know that in this change and lens of perspective, that visibility will not equal value. Visibility doesn't equal value. You aren't more valuable to God just because you're seen on a platform. You're valuable to God because you're anointed, set apart, and He's positioned you to do great things, and He's got an assignment for you. What are you going to do? You're going to know that you're making a difference no matter where you're placed. You're going to love Jesus right where you are. You're going to receive what He has for you right where you are, and you're going to be faithful, and your faithfulness doesn't have to make you visible. Can I tell you that as you're anointed, your visibility may not equal what you call in the value, like I'm only valuable if I'm seen. No, you just become faithful, and the visibility will take care of itself. And if you really want to stir up the gift, number 4, aim to please one, being Jesus Christ. Aim to please Him. Don't aim to please your spouse. Don't aim to please your kids. Don't aim to please your boss. Don't aim to be successful in business. Aim to please the one. Because if you can please the one, you can apologize to your spouse. If you aim to please the one, you can apologize to your cohorts. You can apologize to your friends. You can apologize to your kids. If you aim to please the one, your perspective will be changed because you're stirring up the gift of God that is in you. Every head bowed, every eye closed.